Welcome to the Small Business Miracles Podcast. I'm Jeff Randolph. This small business podcast is brought to you by EAG Advertising and Marketing. We're going to talk about marketing, and we're also here to celebrate entrepreneurs by diving into their story, and we learn a little more about what makes them tick. Today, we're talking about being intentional with alignment, because today, I am joined by a man with a long history of business leadership, Jon Morris. Jon is the founder and CEO of Fiscal Advocate, and he knows everyone has a strategic plan, whether you know it or not, and it's probably aligned with your budget. In fact, the budget is likely to speak louder than your strategic plan. If you're ready, let's bring Jon Morris into the conversation right now, shall we?
Talk about strategies and all the capabilities, building all your hopes, dreams, and all the possibilities. It ain't rocket surgery, but maybe it is. Come on down, we're gonna sit around, we're gonna get into your business, get into your business, get into your business.
I'd like to welcome Jon Morris to the show. Jon is CEO of Fiscal Advocate. Jon, welcome to the program.
Jeff, thanks for having me here. Really great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. And before we jump into Fiscal Advocate, I wanted to go back in the day because talk a little bit about your background and your journey. You have a connection to EAG CEO Michelle Markham way back in the day at Ketchum Directory Advertising, and then you turned that into Rise Interactive. You want to give us just a brief, kind of trail to follow here?
So I'll go even earlier than working with Michelle. I started right out of college, my first digital agency, and it was in 1996 to 2000. And it was basically, a lot of what I did at Rise, which my next my next digital marketing agency. So we were doing programmatic. Actually, programmatic didn't exist. We were doing display advertising and search advertising right in the beginning, and SEO and a bunch of stuff. And I met a guy named Gene Daly who worked at Ketchum Directory Advertising, eventually became the CEO of Ketchum Directory Advertising. And I built a relationship with him. And when I closed down that agency, it was not a success. He hired me to be the head of digital marketing for Ketchum. And so that's when I got to meet Michelle, and we worked on a lot of accounts together. She ran the Kansas City office at that moment in time. And so it's really cool years later that we are now working together, where she's part of my community. Yeah. And so it's been a fun journey.
Oh, outstanding. So tell us more about Fiscal Advocate and what you do. Give me a sense of the benefit that you bring to the professional services business that you work with.
Sure. So I'm going to go back a little next step. So when I left Ketchum, I went to business school at University of Chicago, and I entered an annual business plan competition called the New Venture Challenge. Took second place, won $10,000. I can tell you, 21 years later, I'm still very bitter. It should have been first. But that was the seed money to start a digital marketing agency called Rise Interactive. And I grew Rise from just me to a little bit under 37 million, or a little bit over 37.5 million in revenue in that 16 years. And a big part of the secret to my success was our decision-making process and how we took financial data, we understood benchmark numbers, and we used it to make sure that we are spending our time and our money as intelligently as possible. And so when I sold Rise 5 years ago, I was like, it would be really fun to help other companies do the same thing. And so what Fiscal Advocate does is it really helps with your budgeting, your forecasting, your business intelligence, only for service-based companies, predominantly marketing services and tech service companies, and helps you understand, what should your gross margin be? What % of your revenue should you spend on sales and marketing? What should you spend in R&D? How effective are those spent? And so the idea is, can I help companies grow faster, increase their profits, and grow their cash by leveraging their financial data? So that's what Fiscal Advocate does.
That is us, and working with professional services firms specifically, or anybody outside of that. No, you've got an ideal client profile there.
Exactly. So we are highly focused on one area. I have very deep core expertise and knowledge in that specific segment. And I'm not trying to be a mile wide and an inch deep. I'm trying to be an inch wide and a mile deep.
That's a good call. We don't often focus enough on that ideal client profile, and I wanted to make sure that we hit that pretty hard because for a lot of people, and I know coming from a nonprofit world, of course, you definitely have we need to serve everyone. Everyone is our potential customer kind of concept. But talk just a minute about the need to have that ideal client profile.
So unless you are, let's just say Google or Microsoft, and you have billions and billions of dollars in sales and marketing, you most likely have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars, but single digit millions, not a massive amount. And the smaller your budget, the more impactful you need to make sure that budget is. And so rather than trying to market to everybody, what we want to do is narrow your dollars to what I call your ideal client profile. And it can be regionalized. So like you might want to try and own Kansas City. That was a big play of ours with Rise, as we wanted to own Chicago for a very long time. It can be verticalized, such as you want to own hospital marketing, which was another thing we wanted to do at Rise. Or at my current scenario, we go after companies in the United States that are between typically 5 million and 50 million in revenue. And we are focused only on professional service, but we really want to own marketing services and tech service. Those are the two major categories. And so all of my marketing, all of my sales, but also all of my innovation is focused on that segment. And so oftentimes when people have an ideal, or they don't have an ideal client profile, they take on everybody. It's really out of fear. Is my phone going to ring? Can I really turn this business away? But I can tell you, once you start investing in your ideal client profile, as long as there are enough companies, just to give you an idea, there are 120,000 marketing agencies just in the United States, and we want to work with 30,000 of them.
Gotcha.
It is a massive number where if I lose one, who's next? You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal in terms of a pitch if I don't win one, because there's so many. And by focusing on that segment, my phone is ringing all the time, but it's only ringing with people in my ideal client profile.
That you can serve well. That make good sense and that you can service.
And if they do call me and they're not part of my ideal client profile, it's generally a size issue, meaning that they're too small. I'm not getting calls from retailers or manufacturers or, my phone's ringing. It's just ringing with the right people.
Right.
And so I think it's a fear factor that keeps people from investing in that ideal client profile. And what I tell people is start in a phased approach. Align your sales, your marketing, and your innovation towards one vertical or one ideal client profile. But if someone else calls you, you can still take them on as a customer. You don't have to make your website completely known that you're shut down to the world unless you're within this group. Eventually, though, you'll get to where you need to be, and your website will reflect the person, the group who you're going after.
Yeah. I've heard you say this on a few different on podcasts, on your website, and it's aligning that budget with your strategic plan. And the thing I've heard you say time and time again is everyone has a strategic plan, whether you know it or not. And it's the way it aligns with your budget, where you spend your money. Give us a little bit of kind of your thinking on that line.
Yeah. So all we have is time and money, right? And if you're not sitting there putting a plan together, but you're still spending your time and money on something, well, that's what you've determined is important. Here's one of my favorite examples. People used to ask me all the time, who are competitors of mine, but much smaller, how do you scale Rise? And I would always reverse the question. I was like, well, tell me, what percentage of your revenue do you spend on sales and marketing? And the answer was, oh, we don't spend anything on sales and marketing. It's all word of mouth. Well, that's a strategic decision.
Right.
And you're saying growth is not important to me. We spent a massive amount. We probably had the highest percentage of revenue spent on sales and marketing of any company, any digital marketing company in the industry. That's how important it was to us. And so when you look at that's one of the reasons why I'm a big believer in doing annual planning. I'm a big believer in doing quarterly planning. Is how do we spend your time and money more effectively? How do we make sure that you have a revenue goal, a profit goal, a cash goal, and then hopefully what I call an infrastructure goal, which is how do we make sure that your business at the end of the year is better than it is at the beginning of the year?
And that if you don't budget for it, if you don't actually put some kind of resources behind that, it won't be a mystery why you didn't hit it.
Then you're not serious.
Yeah.
Right. So if let's just say you win one client every 3 months. So you're winning 4 clients a year, and you've spend no money on sales and marketing. And now we're doing planning for 2026, and you put no money into sales and marketing, and all of a sudden you plan on winning 2 clients every 3 months. I think that, it's fictitious.
Yeah.
But if you actually are like, let's start allocating money for the first time. Now you have a chance of growing. Now, the other part that I'll tell you is just because you spend money doesn't mean that you actually are going to get a return. You got to spend that money intelligently. And in the beginning, when you start spending for the first time, oftentimes you're just learning. Like the ROI is like, okay, that idea sucked.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And, let's go get a new good idea.
Yeah. I don't want to leave the main section of the show without talking about AI specifically.
Yeah.
As we look at the future, massive opportunity, massive threat. Stop. You're both right. You've actually put a new product together. Is it all right to talk about that?
Absolutely. So it's called Luca. Luca Pacioli was the founder of accounting in the 15th century. So we named it after him. And it is an AI CFO Copilot. Is going into beta right now. Should go into full launch in January. So think of it as very similar to ChatGPT.
Okay.
But very specific to service-based companies and very specific to your finances. So, if you upload your income statement, your balance sheet, your tax returns, you'll be able to ask questions where you'll get with precision, direction of what you should be doing, what you should be focused on.
Oh, it doesn't sound like there's a need for that at all. That's yeah. Well done. Well done. And
thank you.
I am assuming that is a planned, budgeted thing, that was not a mistake that you created.
That goes back to my comment that you want your business to be better at the end of the year than it is at the beginning of the year. And so when you start doing this with purpose, now I have, if you think about my core business, like we take over the finances of, marketing service companies and tech service companies. So, we'll do their bookkeeping, we'll do their budgeting, we'll do their forecasting. We also provide just fractional CFO, like guidance. But most of our competitors don't invest in innovation. They don't have an AI CFO Copilot. And so when you're looking at, well, who do you want to use? I have this forward-looking innovative company, or I have this person who's been doing it the same way for the last 50 years. And so that's the idea of what we want people to think about when they're doing their own strategic planning.
Yeah, outstanding. Let me, if I can, I'll pivot us and move us into a lightning round. We do a lightning round here on the show where we try to get to know you a little bit better at the same time and go beyond the company and kind of get to you, the person, and maybe we learn something along the way. So it just kind of, I'll throw some questions at you and you can give us just kind of first thought. Okay. In your free time, you coach your daughter's soccer teams. What's the best part about coaching soccer?
So a couple of things. At this point, I just coach my daughter, so I'm no longer coaching the teams.
Oh, okay.
But I would say the best part to me about it is honestly just the time I get with my daughters.
Oh, yeah.
One of my daughters aspires to play in college. Every Thursday, we do practices together. I would also say I played soccer through college. My childhood friends are all my best friends from playing soccer together. I think you learn so much from team sports in terms of discipline, in terms of how to get along with other people, in terms of what times to follow, times to be leaders, times that you have heartbreak, times that you have euphoria. So I really just think any team sport is just such a great thing, in terms of what the foundations is it could build for you.
What that gives you, 2026 is a World Cup year. I noticed some jerseys on the wall back there. Who do you support in the World Cup?
Got to support the U.S.
I've heard that. I have heard that. There's some patriotism there. Have you always supported the U.S. or is it, one of the things I know from growing up playing soccer is that, it was tough to watch it on, like you had to speak Spanish and watch it on Univision for a long time.
Yeah.
So has it always been U.S. or do you have other favorite teams?
In 94, I worked for a company called 94 Sports Marketing that sold tickets for the World Cup here in the United States.
Yeah.
And so I got to go to a ton of different games, but I went to a bunch of different U.S. games. We actually did really well in that World Cup.
Yes.
I then went to France in 98 and I watched the U.S. do a horrible job.
Yes. Also, yes.
I then went to Germany in 2002 to follow the U.S. And I think once again, they did a horrible job. Then 2006, when everyone was asleep, they were amazing.
Yeah, right.
And then it's been pretty lackluster ever since then. So what I will say is when you're the host country, you tend to get a boost. Yes. And so, I think we got a ways to go based on how we're currently playing. But U.S. has been my team.
Got it. All right. Well, hey, here's hoping for 2026. Next question is I don't know if you're familiar with the classic Disney film Meet the Robinsons, but one of the lessons that is taught in that classic Disney film is that from success, we don't learn as much, but from failure, we tend to learn quite a bit. As you think back on mistakes that you've made in running a businesses, is there a great lesson that you've learned from failure or mistakes?
Let's start with my first agency.
Mm-hmm.
Once I stopped blaming the .com crash and started looking inward and recognized I had horrible financial practices and I had horrible HR practices. And, another saying that I have is whatever job you take, you got to find the worst part of the job. And the worst part of being the CEO of a professional service company is that 80% of your costs are people, and they're people you love. They're people you're in the trenches with. And when the numbers tell you have to let them go, you got to let them go.
Yeah.
And you can't be too emotional that you drag it out 6 to 12 months or even longer and never make the decision. So I learned a lot in terms of my financial discipline today and my HR practices today from that first entity as a failure.
Yeah, that is a great lesson to learn. Yeah, because if you don't make those hard calls, it puts the entire thing at risk, and that's a bigger thing to lose. You have to make sure you're supporting everybody who's still going to be around. Yeah, good.
And I'll give you one more example. Mm-hmm. We were in a pitch at Rise to win the display advertising for a company, and at that moment in time, the way display advertising was done was there were sales reps and you would negotiate with those sales reps to do placement. So if you wanted to buy advertising on CNN, you would talk to a CNN sales rep.
Right. Yeah.
And we lost to this company that had this thing called programmatic advertising. Never heard of it before. And all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, we got out innovated. So I don't know if it was a failure. We didn't win the pitch, but within 3 to 4 weeks, we stood up our own programmatic trading desk. And so oftentimes failure can be a cause for innovation if you're willing to look inward and be like, you know what? Like they just flat out, that's where the world is headed. That was pretty cool. I want to be able to do that as well. And so that's another good example.
Oh, great example. Absolutely. Last question in our lightning round. How do you celebrate a big win?
Poorly.
I've noticed that a lot of CEOs end up, either being, I need to do a better job of actually stopping and celebrating versus we do dinner or we do ice cream or whatever.
Yeah. I would say celebrating big wins, would typically be like a big dinner or something exciting. I would say a better question is how do you celebrate small wins?
Oh, okay.
And I'm really bad at it. I was bad at it at Rise. I'm bad at it at Fiscal Advocate. I will say that at Rise, my management style was very much focused on the bottom 5%. So meaning you're doing 95% great, you're screwing up 5%, and I'm all over you on that 5%.
Focus there, yeah.
Here, I'm much more focused on the 95% that you're doing right. And that doesn't mean we can't self-correct and improve the bottom 5%, but I think it's a way of celebrating. I'm really trying to highlight your successes and make you feel great about what you're doing well, as opposed to making you feel crap about the fact that you're human and you're going to make a mistake.
Right. You know, hey, I appreciate that. And there's also an educational theory there that, you know, if you're great at everything but bad at math, you know, we can pound the math part into you a lot, but it may not be helping you excel at all of the other areas you're excelling at. So great concept. I'll take you out of the lightning round. Tell me if the way we usually end that is the same way that you would end it on, say, Hot Ones, where you're eating chicken wings with hot sauce. Tell people where they can find you if they want information about Fiscal Advocate, if they want to connect with you personally. Where do they go? Where should they?
I would say start by following me on LinkedIn. I post minimum of 3 times a week, and I'd love to connect with you. You can also go to fiscaladvocate.com. We have a great resource section that will have, you know, my ebook, a ton of thought leadership on blogs and different information. And then lastly, send me an email, jon@fiscaladvocate.com.
Outstanding. Jon Morris, CEO of Fiscal Advocate. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Thanks for so much, Jeff.
Thanks. And that is our show. Thanks to our friend Jon Morris. And thank you for listening to the Small Business Miracles podcast. Remember to subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review. Drop us a line on the website at eagadv.com if you have any thoughts. Until then, we'll be out here helping entrepreneurs with another Small Business Miracle.
Talk about strategies and all the capabilities, building all your hopes, dreams, and all the possibilities. It ain't rocket surgery, but maybe it is. Come on down, we're gonna sit around, we're gonna get into your business.